Well, welcome, purveyors of good entertainment, of the anime and manga persuasion. Welcome to another edition of Otaku Thursday. Wow, another week has gone by. We're in June, we're in the summer. If you're watching our Madman with the Show episodes, we are in the summer edition there. And of course, here on Otaku Thursday, we are fully back once again. Thank you for those for you patiently waited for us to come back. A lot was going on, and I've said it a couple times. We were going through health issues, and then we ended up. Luckily, and that played in our favor. We ended up getting a stipend, so we were able to get some new equipment in here. And we're still doing some tweaks, so here and there. So you might see some glitches here and there. We apologize for that, but hey, listen, we're trying to get there. Also, don't forget to check out Sci-Fi Snob. I'll be on next week on these. I believe it's going to be next week if he doesn't push it to the week after. The season premiere of the retrospective Babylon 5 Season 2. Yes, that's right. It's if you haven't seen Season 2 yet on there, go grab it on Tubi TV. It's a really good show to watch. It's one of the best sci-fi shows in history in itself. But we're not here to talk about sci-fi shows like that. We're here to talk about anime and manga. Actually, this is mostly going to be anime today. I promise we're going to try to get some manga stories in there. We're working on some things. But, let's start off with this. And also, before you get into it, don't forget to drop a comment, a like, share, and hit that subscribe button. You were both here on YouTube and on Rumble every week at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's when you can catch us. If you missed us, you can continue to catch us, as this video will stay up as long as possible. Recently, this past weekend, we had a movie release from Japan. Which will be the next season of Dan Da Dan Dan. Dan Da Dan Dan Evil Eye was just released theatrically in the U.S. and actually did pretty good. It did pretty good for itself. Number 8 in the domestic box office. Of course, it wasn't going to be Lilo and Stitch or anything like that because we haven't gone to the bear. But it did fare better than one of the number one movies before. It was Sinners and Thunderbolts, which both grossed almost similar, within about 400,000 of each other. Dan did about 3 million with about in about 1,000 theaters, doing about 2,800 per theater, which is not bad at all. And remember, this is being distributed by J Kids, which J Kids is now under the control of Toho. Yes, that's right. Toho has bought into this. They are going to be doing acquisitions on there. And if you haven't watched the video yet, J Kids is going to be releasing a North American version remaster of Shin Godzilla, which will be a remaster of that. It's going to theaters first in August, and then it will get a 4K release on Blu-ray, which that's a good thing. That's a good thing too if you love Godzilla on there. But all in all, when you look at that Dan Da Dan Dan, comparative that right now Demon Slayer would be the number one current on there, most worldwide, 485 million on there. And you look at the total gross of all time, they would fall. Dan Da Dan Dan would fall under. Actually, would knock Battle of the Gods, Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods down, as far as lifetime gross openings, which basically would put it in the 25th spot, just right. Where are we? Now Weathering. I'm looking at this real quick. Howling's Moving Castle will be the next one above it on there, which was released through Walt Disney. But that's a good thing to see that is happening. We haven't had an opening in Japan for it yet, so we don't have those numbers on the release on Dan Da Dan Dan. Right now in Hong Kong, it did about 30. Well, if that's U.S. dollars, 37,266, which that translates a little differently on there. So worldwide is like 3.1 million altogether, as far as that. I mean, Don 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 Don. Let me tell you something. Crunchyroll hasn't pushed too well. If you saw my little short on that, or last week's Otaku Thursday, where I said, it's like Don 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 and Free Ren were really left out in the cold. For the reason is that they pushed over. Listen, nothing against Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling is great. But the thing about the point of view, and most people don't realize, is during the Crunchyroll Awards, is they were not going by season 2. They were going by season 1, which I think season 2 was more superior than season 1 as far as the content, the action, and all that. Even though not knocking on Solo Leveling. But the push, I would have, Free Rent should have been up there, at least in top, and so did Don 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 Don. Because most people don't realize if you haven't seen Free Rent, it is a really great anime. It's well done. Yeah, it does have action. It is a little paced, but that is the thing about this story. It is the journey in itself. And the main character, Free Ren, she's going through her life. She's an elf. This would be the most accurate portrayal of an elf in anime. I mean, you go through all the other anime shows about elves. This would be the more exact point to it. And what I mean by that is you're looking at mortality. You're not really sexualizing, which is nothing problem with that. Like you save the elf, and suddenly the elf is part of your harem, and that kind of situation. Or she's gaining weight, all this. She's in our universe, all that. But no, this is to the point where, elves have long lifespans, and with Free Ren, she's seeing her friends die left and right. She was part of an adventurers group that became heroes, and now it's like years later, and she's going back through the towns that she's been for, and those towns have changed. There are statues erected for her and her friends, on there. Most people don't recognize her as they go by unless they hear her name. This is, the life of an elf. An elf is going to go through this in their lives in any fantasy tale. But, when you hear most stories, you don't hear that kind of situation. I mean, you get over to for example, in the Lord of the Rings story, with the king and all that, and how the woman he loved, she has to give up, being an elf, become more of a human, and lose that ability that she will die a normal lifespan to that point. That she's given a lot up for that, for love. That's the kind of story you want to see to that perspective. And when you look at Free Ren, it's to the point you're seeing from the other point of view where she's looking down her mortality, that she's living a long life and everything is changing all around her. She's taking on, a student, and that student is growing up as well. And eventually she's going to get old and die as well. And, this is the thing that you have to go through, being an elf. And I think that's the important takeaway from this. And that's why it is so good to see this. It's the journey to that point. And, of course, Don, 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 this is just an insane, crazy story where you have, evil spirits and ghosts versus aliens in here. Which, this is, it is fantastic. And, some people criticize. They say, look what they're doing with the aliens. They're trying to impregnate their. It's not uncommon when you hear these stories. And, and the thing is that, when you look at it, it's like almost torture in a way. Because if you ever see the movie Fire in the Sky, if you've never seen Fire in the Sky, I highly recommend to watch that. Because if you want to be claustrophobic and stuff like that on a situation where you're captured by aliens, this is the movie you want to steer away from. No, honestly, I mean, the things that happen to this guy, it's supposedly based on a true story. Now, whether it is real, that it did happen or didn't happen, that's nonetheless. It's the story in itself that basically you have someone who supposedly disappear and basically turned back up again because his friends were charged with murder, and now he's back again alive and telling his tale, and basically people think he's crazy, that people all made this up and all that situation. But when you hear the story and you see from the point of view in the movie, it's just, oh my god. And you take it to the perspective that they, it's made levity in Don 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 Don. You look to that point, and that's what this is what it is. They're making fun of alien invasions, alien captures, and stuff like that. Because you hear these stories. When you've seen the TV series X Files and many other shows similar to it, and then hear the stories from actual people who claim that they were abducted, and you hear those stories, and you're like, oh my god, you know, to that point. In history in itself, you've seen in science fiction itself, you've heard of these situations, and they're detailed in its points. So why can't Dan 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 be there? And this is why I always tell people, when I talk online, it says, "What's wrong with it?" Oh, they're sexualizing the girl. It's not sexualizing. She's been captured. They want to impregnate her, or they're testing the situation, and that's the stories that do come out. If you're going to chastise this, chastise the entire history of UFO encounters, because it's the same after same after same to that point. So you slam on one and you don't slam on the rest. It's the same thing like Redo the Healer. Redo the Healer, you have the points where basically, it's graphic to the point that he's been sexually assaulted and all that. Now he's getting revenge and doing the same thing. But that's not uncommon from other Hollywood movies. And I've said this before, Miss 45, I Spit on Your Grave. Little girl lives down the lane. A lot of these movies that portray sexual assault and the person that gets revenge for that, whether it's a male or female. And remember, the biggest viewers of Redo the Healer, according to the ratings on that, were women. Yeah. There were articles put out that a lot of women did watch these series and did series, and a lot of them are wanting a season 2. I mean, I don't think we're going to. I hope so. We're never going to get a dub. And that's another problem, and we have to talk that in another episode, is that when they pick and choose these series and stuff like that to get dubbed, why not do it to all? And they say, well, it's not financially feasible. Why you say that? I do watch a lot of my anime in subtitle format. But there's occasions where I'm tired. I just want to relax back and watch some anime, but I don't want to read. I'm tired. I don't want to focus on reading. I want to hear it. Sometimes I knock out watching, go to fall asleep, nap, something like that during an anime. It's not saying that it's boring and all that, but it relaxes me. I like the enjoyment to watch this. And, and there's a lot of anime out there, and there's a lot of stuff that's even coming from the West now. We just had, which I recommend on there, the new Predator movie, The Predator Killer of Killers, which is pretty good. The animation could have been a little better, but, I mean, the storyline was spot on. I mean, it is a sort of sequel to Prey, and I don't know if it's supposed to go into the Badlands movie that's going to be out soon. It's by the same director. So, do catch that. Do really catch that. It's not a Japanese anime per se. It'll be more closer to Arcane in that animated itself. But we'll see that when it opens. I'm not certain when it opens in Japan. We'll see those numbers when they come out on there. Moving on, here's some other good news out there. Toonami is about to do a little do the schedule shuffle again. In about, what is it today? I think it's this weekend. It should be this weekend on there. That they're going to be, yeah, it is this weekend. And there is a change on there, especially since we're getting to the end of Lazarus right now, too. But this is not going to replace Lazarus. But we're familiar with Dragon Ball Damia. Damia is going to be joining the Toonami block, finally. Which it is... this is where it's supposed to be when, premiere on it. Each of the Dragon Balls have been on Toonami itself for many years. It introduced the Dragon Ball universe to anime fans in the West. And technically it's effectively June 15th because it's past midnight. So basically at 12:30 a.m. June 15th, for 14th to 15th, Dragon Ball Damia will be joining the lineup at the 12:30 a.m. slot right after Lazarus. And before, actually, it's going to be a sort of like mini movie introduction because it is episode 1 is a little bit longer than the rest of the episode, so you get a little bit more of Dragon Ball there. At 1:15 a.m., you're going to get Bleach Thousand Year Blood War. 1:45 a.m., Blue Exorcist will continue the Kyoto Saga. 2:15 a.m., we'll get another episode of One Piece. 2:45 Naruto, and at 3:15 a.m. Sailor Moon. And also, I think a lot of people are upset. Sailor Moon's getting dropped. I think one of the movies or something like that's getting dropped from Netflix. It happens. It happens, ladies and gentlemen. Things, contracts do run out, and if it's not renewed, it goes away, and it's a shame because this is why I've always said, if you're going to fight against piracy, you need to maintain all of this shows and movies and like that on streaming as best you can, because everything is not all these series and TV, broadcast television, streaming and all, they're not available everywhere. No, it isn't. For a year, and we got a video coming out on this, and we're going to talk about this a little bit on the Man with the Show. And I've been watching, I'm in season 2 right now because I haven't seen it in such a long time. There's a series that basically was right before, or it was during the Law and Order era, is Homicide: Life on the Street, which was really one of the best cop shows out there. And it introduced us to Munch, who's in Law and Order, the sex crimes unit series on there. Because Munch, the character, the late Richard Belzer, he was originally on that series and moved over to Law and Order toward the end of Homicide: Life on the Street. But great cast. But we'll talk about that on Man with the Show. Do catch that. But there's one proof right there. That show has not been seen even in standard scheduling on regular broadcast television for many years. There are two or three episodes of Law and Order, if I'm not mistaken on that. It might be 2, that is supposed to have a crossover with Homicide: Life on the Street. If you don't have access to that, you're only getting one half of the story. You're not getting the end of it on Law and Order. It finishes off on Homicide: Life on the Street. So having it back now, you're able. In fact, one of the episodes I didn't get to finish watching because from Law and Order, I finally got to see the end of it. To that point. But like I said, Dragon Ball Damia on Toonami starting this weekend at 12:30 a.m. Eastern on your local Toonami on Adult Swim. Do catch it if you haven't caught it yet. Most likely, I'm not certain. Did they say it was going to be English? Yeah, I think it was going to be in the English dub. But it'd be nice if they throw it in as the Japanese version, because you have the original Goku, voice of Goku, that she's on there, and then of course Stephanie, not only also the voice of Goku in the English dub version as well. So, once again, do catch it out. It's great watching. You'll be getting the entire series week to week. So we're going to finish this off today. This is our last story on this. For the last several weeks, we've been discussing Crunchyroll and all the situation that's been going on with this service, which is owned by Sony on that. We talked about how Sony is going after the IP addresses of people doing anime music piracy which is kind of funny because Crunchyroll itself used to be a pirated site. So that's kind of ironic that that's happening. And we know that we have a video out that basically the lawsuit has been settled between all the parties on that. We've also discussed that there are a lot of changes coming across the board when it comes to Crunchyroll because basically right now Crunchyroll, and we said this last week, it's starting a licensing war. There are new players that have just joined in on it. We got Netflix, we got Disney, Amazon is expanding out. Tubi's not out of this. Who knows what Tubi? And then you have companies like J Kids that's buying the licensing that will probably sell the licensing to streaming on there, or if they open their own streaming channel, which that would be, you know, not be crazy to happen. But remember, they're part of Toho, and I know Toho has been trying to push into the United States properly to avoid working with Sony, Crunchyroll, and a couple other companies on there. They want to bring their product in here properly, and I don't blame them for that because the way these IPs have been treated here in the U.S., as far as the way they've been edited, the dubbing, the subtitling, all these issues, and now how it's being advertised online. We said Don 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 wasn't properly advertised. If it was properly advertised right, it would have done a lot better on streaming, even though there were multiple streaming sites that were in the goal of showing Don Don Don. In fact, where did I watch Don Don Don? I think I watched it on Netflix. The big push, and you saw at the Crunchyroll Awards again, it was Solo Leveling, but that was season 1, not season 2. And, Free Ren was left out in the cold as well, and a couple of other anime that we haven't discussed about. But one thing I've been harking on, and I've been saying this, is that Sony and Crunchyroll are pretty much running the business on it. Even though we have High Dive and many other companies on the Retro Crush, and now we have Netflix, Disney, Amazon, and Tubi TV that are pretty much putting out a lot of anime content. But most people don't realize is that, and I've said this, Crunchyroll is a monopoly in itself because right now, currently, and this article's out at CBR, is that they control about 75% of all anime. That's correct. Yeah, that is correct on to that point. They control 75%. I mean, why hasn't the government stepped in? When the Crunchyroll Funimation's merger happened, there should have been a lot of questions. But unfortunately, we have people in politics that will, and I can't say for this situation, but I believe someone got paid under the table somehow. No one company should have this much power to that point. This is why, and again, this is why piracy is still very popular, because there are those who don't want to, deal with Crunchyroll. To that point. It is to the exact point. And there are some places where Crunchyroll does not show certain anime. There are parts in the world, and I keep saying it, it's a VPN, kids, come on. Because, that's why VPNs become very popular to that point. But also, some people will go around the VPNs and decide to go the way of the pirate. Well, actually, they still use the VPN, but, to that point, you know what I'm saying. But we're going to read this off of CBR. Crunchyroll now controls about 75% of all anime, but won't answer for major Netflix exclusive series. And this was published back on the 2nd. And I think, was it Sam Fang wrote this? When it comes to anime, Crunchyroll has become a top-tier streaming platform, amassing the world's largest anime streaming library with over 17 million subscribers globally. Its company president recently discussed the streamer's acquisition, including a recent Netflix exclusive title that it didn't secure, which is a decent anime also. In a new BBC News interview with Tom Gherkin, Crunchyroll's boss, Raoul Purin, talked about the company's growth and how Japanese anime has exploded in popularity around the world, as well as how the other streamers like Netflix are starting to get more competitive when it comes to this particular entertainment space. Netflix got the license for Delicious in Dungeon. Was that a show, for example, that you yourselves were trying to get on Crunchyroll? But then Netflix swooped in, Gherkins asked, nodding along to the question. Perrin responded without specifically referring to the series. Yeah, there are about almost 300 new shows made in Japan every year, and we want to get as much of that content exclusively on our service. Gherkin compared the anime licensing to a football club and signing players from overseas. Purin laughed and agreed. You're right, it's somewhat similar. When it came down to licensing, Delicious in Dungeon, one of 2024's biggest anime titles, particularly within the fantasy genre, Netflix ultimately came out on top. The streaming secured the title, streaming it exclusively and simul-dubbing it worldwide on a weekly basis, issuing its more traditional binge model drop. And that's the thing, we discussed before, is because of this licensing war. The way Crunchyroll is doing their licensing is sort of like, we'll pay this amount, and then you'll make off what we make off the advertisements and stuff like that. Whereas Netflix, it will drop the money completely for the series. It depends on, which the company, like Toho or Trigger or anywhere else, what they consider to be feasible in the contract. Continuing on, the fantasy adventure anime series animated by Trigger, which also did Kill la Kill, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and Little Witch Academia, is set in a world of dungeon explorations with parties going out on raids in hope of finding the mysterious Golden Kingdom, which is fabled to be the treasure of a dragon. When a raid goes wrong and ends up with one of the party members eaten by a dragon, oh dear, her friends go out on a dangerous mission to rescue her. The offbeat and imaginative series blends comedy, adventure, and food for a mix that is not often seen in other anime series of its kind. Actually, you do see that in some other anime. There are some out there, which are two of them are coming back this season, in fact. Viewers certainly seem to resonate with Delicious in the Dungeon storyline. The series dominated Netflix's anime rankings for 2024, coming out on top over Demon Slayer, Spy X Family, and Jujutsu Kaisen as the streamer's most watched anime season from January to June 2024. It accounted for 90.6 million hours of viewing time. It also picked up 16 nominations for 2025's Crunchyroll Awards, including for Best New Series and Anime of the Year. While Delicious in Dungeon has already been renewed for a second season with Netflix, Crunchyroll has on its own top titles that are dominating the global anime landscape. Perhaps the biggest anime right now is Solo Leveling. It's not the only one. And Purin talked about how the story attracts fans. For all of these fans have grown up with games. They all know the trends and themes. When they see them within a narrative story, it's attractive. Purin continued to talk about the show massive success, stating Solo Leveling is a great example. This show that we brought in last year in January to our fans, it was a big hit. It was the number one show on the platform in most regions we were in this year. This year in January, we released season 2 and it's broken all records. Delicious in Dungeon is currently available to stream exclusively on Netflix. But see, here, this is where we have this point, and this is in the disagreements. They push, we got Solo Leveling, that's our number one show. But you got a ton of great other shows on your streaming site itself. Why aren't you promoting those? Like Apothecary Diaries, The Red Ranger Becomes Adventurer in Another World, My Hero Academia's spin-off, The Vigilantes, The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. That's another really good one. Headhunter to Another World, From a Salaryman to Big Four. I thought that was excellent. The daily life of a middle-aged online shopper in another world. Also, let's see. I'm just going through my list. Chilling in another world with level 2 super cheat powers. Even, let's see. We said Apothecary. Diaries. Another one. I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out our level. Of course, the new season hasn't come out on that one, but that one is also a good series in itself. Skeleton Knight, Another World, which we have another season of that. Here's one of the food ones that I was telling you about. That they said, well, don't see it that often. Campfire cooking in another world with my absurd skill. We're getting another season of that this year. It's a good anime. It is really fun to watch on that as well. And of course, ReZero and many others. I mean, there's so many others. Konosuba, Shield Hero. Of course, obviously, Free Ren. Free Ren is a major one out there. Lycris Recall. And, I can go on and on and on. And, the thing about it is, if you have a site, you want to promote the best of the best, obviously. But you also want to promote other things that maybe people have missed. See, great thing about anime, and I've always said this, there's always something for everybody. Not everyone's going to like the solo leveling, or Delicious in the Dungeon, or Demon Slayer, or Spy X Family. There are many other things that people might pick up and like better. These streaming sites have to understand that. This is why I say they should be more emphasis on the English dubs, because there are stuff out there. There are people out there that refuse to do subtitling, which, honestly, they should watch the subtitling. I've always said this. There's some great movies, great TV series, great anime, and of course out there that is subtitled. I mean, you're missing, as far as movies, and we're talking regular movies, Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa has some great movies out there. Right now, you can catch Ron, which is a version of King Lear. Right now, it's available on Tubi TV for free. If you haven't seen Ron, and here's the important part of this. This is one of the last films in movie history that went out and got a ton of extras. I think over 1,500 extras with horses, battle scenes that to this day you only get a couple. You might get like 100 or 200 guys, and then CG the rest of it. For example, Game of Thrones. That's why I always say, hey, catch it sometime. But also, I understand, you don't want to sit there and read. You want to watch the movie and not look down every few seconds on there. And that's why I said there should be more emphasis to English dub these. Even if they have to English dub them in Japan, which I would recommend that any English dub that comes out should come from the original company that made if it's Toho, if it's Trigger, if it's Katakawa, any of these companies, they should be doing it themselves, not leaving it to other countries, Western fronts to do it. Yeah, you might save some money by phasing it out there, but you might make more money putting it out properly, because you can bring more. How can I say? You build a better mousetrap, they'll come knocking on your door to that point. And, you want to do this. Having to the point that you have something that is wanted by people on this side of the world, even all the way down to South America, through Mexico, Central and South America. We've already talked about on Man with the Show, Brazil is going to become the second largest international in fast channels. Guess what's on fast channels? Anime. Pluto TV has several anime channels. So does Tubi. So does I'm trying to think right now. The Roku on there, and Plex as well. Yeah, Plex. And then you have sites like Retro Crush that's running anime 24/7 on their episodes. I think if you put this out the way properly, no politics, straight on translations properly, no editing, no crying and saying, well, we shouldn't be watching this, and stop calling it pornography. That's the other thing, is that it gets it, to the hackles of the back of my neck. You have people out there, even in Crunchyroll, they work for the company, and they think all anime is pornography. No, it is not. This is why you have countries like Russia, and Australia, New Zealand, France, United Kingdom, that and even in this country, that they're trying to ban anime because they said, well, we can't have kids. Do you not understand that these characters are templates and can be seen on many other anime? This is not where they say, well, we're taking one child and we're going to put it in the anime itself and animate them. No, these are templates. And they use these templates over and over again. They may change the hairstyle. They might change a little bit of the nose or the mouth, the ears or the build. That's to that point. Is there sex in anime? Yes, of course there is. It's sexiness, sex, of course there is. Same way that there are in R-rated movies. There are anime that are made for kids, family, adults, and connoisseurs, which I mean by hentai and many other different genres above the R rating. And the thing is that you can't put those categories all together in the same premise. This is not pornography. This is people out there that are upset that we have all this type of entertainment and they don't like it because of the things they heard. Then you have others that are just literally using religion to pop this out. And this is, obscenity laws that they want to change. I've always said, when it comes down to anime, this is a work of art. Some of it is beautiful work. The what is it? The Demon Slayer entertainment arc, which there's prostitution and all that, is one of the most beautifully animated fight scenes that I've seen in a long time. And I've grown up with a lot of anime in my life. My anime viewing started in the 70s. I'm almost 60 now. Imagine how much anime I've seen in my entire life. And I still got to go back in sometimes to remember some of these because I've seen so many. Like Crunchyroll said, they released 300 plus animes a year. Think about that. If you fall a little behind, you're way behind sometimes on there, and you got to jump out. You might have to stop an anime midstream to jump to the next newer one. Or you wait till you completely and you do it, you do it on one one deep dive on there that you binge it. All the episodes. I've done that with a couple of series on there. I'm still way behind on One Piece and Bleach. And I'm trying to catch up on those. There's stuff from, 2-3 decades ago that I haven't finished. I haven't finished Dirty Pair. A couple episodes on that. Just finished, even though it was a shorter one, there was the cop one, Mad Bull, which was also, I thought was pretty good. Some people didn't like it because, they said a lot of violence, a lot of sex. It takes place in New York. It puts a bad light in cops, the NYPD. It's an anime. It's a story. It's a crazy story in itself. And there's a lot of, Mobile Gundam, Macross, stuff that, is just now getting here into the U.S. that's never been here before. There's a lot of anime out there that, it's been missing for quite some time. Angel Egg is one of those right now. And I can go through a list on there. I would love to see once again, and I haven't seen it in a while. Some of them I don't even remember the names. I mean, I can remember Ikusan. Ikusan, I don't even think there's a DVD version of Ikusan. If there is, it's probably Japan only. And I hate to say it, piracy used to be a big thing. Used to be a major big thing for anime back in the day. It's big now still, but the way it was done years ago is you didn't have the internet. You have to remember that. The internet wasn't available at the time when I was young. Where did I get my hankering? I had to go down to Chinatown. Where people, put their own subtitles on it. Hopefully they subtitled right, which actually most of them were subtitled very good. That's how I got to see Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. I saw it, before it really hit on TV. I saw it on DVD. And there were many other series that, just came across. I went out and got it to that point. This is how things were done back then. Now it's piracy on the high seas. Going to Pirate Bay or one of these other sites that have it, or going to a direct site that is streaming it. Again, remember, Crunchyroll used to be one of these sites. And then they became legitimate. And now they're going after the piracy. They're trying to just stab down the piracy itself. Well, you want to get rid of the piracy? Make things more available. Share and share alike to that point. Good competition out there. You have sites like High Dive that's out there that, they're struggling to stay alive. And they have good content out there. And they have a good site. They have it's not the greatest, as far as the detail on the streaming site, but it works a little better than Crunchyroll on occasion. Because you get some crashes on Crunchyroll. High Dive, I don't see as many, crashes on there. But it, of course, obviously occurs depending on what's playing out there. But what I want you to play with is the comment line. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts about this. Are you okay with Crunchyroll controlling most of the anime that comes into the West? Are you okay with that? Or or do you stay on piracy? Are you pirating? I mean, I'm not going to turn you in. And I always say, I've always matched this to the point with piracy to going to the library. You don't have something readily available, say, in the bookstore. Maybe out of print. You go to the library, you get it, and you're able to read it. You would love to buy it, but you can't. Or you get it from the library, you read it, and then you want to put it part of your collection. And you go out and buy it. You go to Barnes & Noble, you go to Amazon. And it's the same thing with this. When it comes to anime and manga purchases, they do very well. Look at Barnes & Noble's manga section. It's tremendous. Beats out comic book hands down. So let me know in the comments your thoughts about this. Don't forget to share this video. Hit the like. And smash on that. I mean, really smash on that subscribe button if you're on Rumble or if you're on YouTube. And, I'm starting to hear from you guys on Rumble that you rather come here to Rumble than to YouTube. So welcome here as well. And if you haven't yet, do sign on. I mean, we do put these videos out on a daily basis. We are working to try to do live streams. We're trying to work. There's a lot being done right now. Right now, we're starting to team up. Like right now, I'm talking with Sci-Fi Snob. I'm talking with Cam over on Sci-Fi Snob's channel. We've been doing a couple of episodes together. We did some pop culture together. Will we do it again? Yeah, we'll probably most likely do it again. We'll trade off to the situations, and we're working on it. Eventually, probably we may do a project together. I do foresee that in the near future. This is what happens here, and this is what happened in the past with me. in my public access career, in the 80s, I worked with about a dozen people with other shows. And we created some fun stuff. And this is what I want to do here again. I want to get back to those heydays. Nerdrotic has been doing it for quite some time. The Quartering and many others. And that's the type of programming you do want to see out there. And that's why I said, hit that subscribe. Be sure on that. Share this with everybody. If you want to go forward, there's ways of assisting this channel grow by monetary. We do have a t-shirt site on there with t-shirts that are available that you can purchase, and some proceedings comes right back to us on that. And then, of course, if you want to buy us a cup of coffee, there's also a listing in the description where you can just throw a couple bucks at us on there. Eventually, as we get into streaming, we'll get into super chats and stuff like that. That's coming. We're working on that. So stay tuned. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube and Rumble. Remember, take in the anime, take in the manga. Treat it like a bottle of wine. When you open it, smell it, taste it, enjoy it. Because that's how it's supposed to be. This is basically should be enjoyed by all. So until next time, thank you for tuning in and have a good one and enjoy your anime and manga out there.
Thanks for watching, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe as this helps the reach of this channel. Finally, as a content viewer, you have the ability to help support this channel as new internet laws around the world will diminish our reach and affect our sponsors. If you choose to help, there are two ways listed in the description below. The first link will lead you to a pay site where you can make a monetary donation. The second will lead you to our gear shop where you can buy shirts, mugs, and other gear. Discounts will be listed on the site. Once again, thank you for watching and your support.
Fuck all what you think, bitch. Make sure let me paint